Welcome, you're on the Fringe show. I'm your host, Tatiana Zalan, and I go live every Friday at 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe helps you to navigate the rapidly changing world and increase the odds of your success. Here we discuss technology, startups, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities in the new digital world. Today is show number 24. In the last week, in the part one of the show, it was dedicated to transhumanism, and I talked about the history and philosophy of transhumanism. Today, in this episode, I will delve into how the world might look like in 2030 through the lens of transhumanism, as well as some of the moral, ethical, and legal implications of transhumanism as a movement, as a philosophy. Let me just remind you that I'm not your financial or investment or health advisor, so this show is just for informational and educational purposes. When I ended my last show, number 23, you can have a look at that. I left you with a couple of questions. Firstly, I mentioned that this transhumanist agenda, you can call it human augmentation, if you will, is nothing new. It goes back to very ancient times. But the big questions for any person of faith as we live today is, well, Creator has endowed us with human essence. And you can think of Creator as God, as source, a source field, your spirit, the universe, and so on. Would rejecting it bring the universal happiness and well-being? And would it be moral even to go against the order of nature, the natural law designed by our Creator? Let me remind you what transhumanism means and as a philosophy, what does it say? And it's coming from one of the most prominent supporters and adherents to this philosophy, and in fact, thought leader in this area, Nick Bostrom. He said that transhumanists view human nature as work in progress, a half-baked beginning that we can learn to remold in desirable ways. Current humanity need not be at the end point of evolution. Transhumanists hope that by responsible use of science, technology, and other rational means, we shall eventually manage to become post-human beings with vastly greater capacities that present humans have. There is an article here in Forbes that I just chose to talk about, and that's because most of my audience are business people and entrepreneurs, so you probably relate to these aspects of transhumanism a lot better than others. That's the title of the article, The Future of Humanity, 7 Ways the World Will Change by 2030. And let me just go walk you through very quickly these 7 ways that our humanity will change. First is body augmentation. This is nothing new, but in future, by 2030, we'll have probably lenses that can take pictures or videos. We can have universal language translators that will allow us to communicate around the world, anywhere. Exosuits, special suits that increase physical strength. We might also have implants ranging from brain microchips and neural lace, that's what Elon Musk is working on, to mind control prosthesis and RFID chips. You can wave your hand and you can unlock the doors, you can open your computer, and so on. We can also think about biological augmentation as a result of increased insight into our genome, advances in vitro technology, IVF in particular, and this will allow us, arguably, to select the most intelligent embryos, if you will. We will have powerful CRISPR gene editing technology that may one day give us an ability to eliminate all our genetic inheritable diseases. And these body augmentation capabilities, according to Forbes, will give us rise to humans that are more resilient and optimized and controlled. Second major trend is our thought processes will be faster and more transferable. So both wearable and implantable brain-machine interfaces, or BMI as we call them in technology, are a development from organizations that include Elon Musk, that's his Neuralink, and Facebook and DARPA. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg some time ago made this pronouncement or described the following scenario, that today we share our experiences. When we want to do that, we upload videos, we upload photos, but with BMI, we can one day share our full sensory and emotional experience of, say, vacation with friends and family. The third one is gamification, and that's in behavioral sciences more generally, that will increase productivity. And that's already kind of happening, and Uber uses some might use gamification techniques that include a graphical interface that brings video game-like quality to the drive, and it can also prompt goals that are always just a little bit out of reach of individual capabilities, so that that is to encourage continued pursuit of better and better outcomes. They're also saying that we will be a lot more empathetic because VR could be used to understand the plight of refugees, giving us the opportunity to step out of our shoes, and that will and make us probably more likely to donate money. And BMI in itself will help us advance our ability to empathize if we are able to understand someone else's perspective straight from their own brain, rather than just being communicated verbally. Extreme personalization and customization is another trend. We see it happening in marketing already, but we will increasingly, in addition to all these location and past purchase history data, marketers may be able to use emotional filters based on our activity and change the tone of the message according to our current mood. So it will be happening right on the spot. Business practices will shift significantly. These are, I found, very interesting predictions. Some futurists say that by 2026, that's in 5 years' time, we will have AI machine as a member of the board of directors. What we will see also happening is integration of BMI into workplaces. We'll see eventual scenarios where companies will be sponsoring perhaps nootropic supplements and neurostimulation devices to improve employee focus and also increase the speed at which they acquire their skills. Conversations will be focused on our societal values, and that will gain a much greater deal of attention. Society will be engaging growing philosophical debates, if you will, about things like what our values as individuals, as a country, as a species. What do we value first? Is it intelligence? Is it success? Is it happiness? Is it self-fulfillment? It's quality of life, balance in life. What is it? Or maybe it's something else as well. And so we will have increasingly the tools to engineer any of these outcomes. And just consider this possible scenario. If one country decides to create a nation of super intelligent and physically augmented citizens, then will other countries decide that they have no choice but to follow suit? It's kind of very interesting scenario, I think, and we need to look into that. Last time, in the first part of the show, I talked a lot about the experiments that are going on in augmenting humans. And to augment humans, we need to sometimes think about fusing humans and animals so that we can probably acquire a better insight into various therapeutics or maybe our immune system and so on. So we really, what I talked about, these human-animal chimeras, which are not science fiction, they already do exist. And if you go on YouTube, you can find lots of videos that are dedicated to human-animal chimeras. And it poses very interesting legal question: how much human genetic material can be amenable, so to speak, before it is more human than animal? And what, if any, rights in law should he or she have? Does a creature with 80% human and 20% animal DNA have less rights than kind of a full human because he or she is not fully human? Is genetics forcing us the requirement to think in gradations of species within the creature? That's an interesting question. And with genetic chimeras resulting in similar gradations or defined rights in law, will that also mean that we'll need to change mankind's social environment and culture? So all of these are interesting questions. And in fact, if you look at the US patent law, and that when the story thickens really, an invention must fulfill the 4 requirements in order to be patentable and become intellectual property. It needs to be original, it needs to be not very obvious, it needs to have a very clear and demonstrable function, which in the case of chimerical life, could include specific research purposes, such as the study of the human immune system or disorders in these chimerical creatures. And it must be enabling. In other words, the patent should function like a recipe. It should have a very good description and some kind of instructions of how you can carry it into the future. And under these criteria, if you look at them, well, the animal-human chimera, even if, say, 99% of it's only 99% human and only 1% animal, or vice versa, well, it really falls into this patent law. It could be a patentable object and intellectual property. So that's a very interesting legal question about all this transhumanism experimentations, I would say. I also talked in my last show about Ray Kurzweil, who is another very famous proponent of transhumanism, and he in particular emphasizes the idea of merging biological and non-biological intelligence. The most important application of nanobots by 2030 will be literally to expand our minds, according to him, through the merger of biological and non-biological intelligence. The first stage will be to augment all our trillions of very slow interneural connections with very high-speed virtual connections via nanorobot communication. And this may greatly boost our patent, not so much patent, but pattern recognition abilities rather, memories and overall thinking ability, and we will be able to directly interface with powerful forms of non-biological intelligence. The technology will also provide wireless communication from one brain to another. And in other words, what this means is that the World Wide Web will become exactly the kind of super brain or super consciousness. And this presents in itself another issue. How does one maintain one's individuality, one's personality and freedom in such a world, given the ability of all these technologies to directly modify our memory, behavior, and even individual consciousness? And most interestingly, please pose this question to yourself: who will be the systems administrators or operators in this brave new world? Well, what has been engineered clearly, and that's according to Farrell and DeHart, to scholars who write about transhumanism, is literally a technological version of the corporate person. It is no longer a legal metaphor so much, it's technological reality. It's a single, distributed, and interconnected brain. Very interesting propositions. And this leads us to another idea of what will happen to humanity. Will we end with 2 civilizations, normal humans versus enhanced humans? This new humanity, according to Farrell and DeHart in particular, will think faster, be more creative. Ray Kurzweil also talks about that as well. It will possess remarkable and almost like photographic memories. We will read entire books with almost total comprehension and recall in mere minutes. We will live long. We will embark on several different careers, perhaps during our lifetime. We can repair our bodies without having to visit physicians and maintain peak health without exercise. We'll go with minimum of sleep, wouldn't that be nice? And communicate with each other nearly instantaneously, allowing all this coordinated action to occur much faster than normal people, mere mortals, do. Is it kind of a health versus hell versus heaven scenario? According to Kurzweil, no, probably he disagrees, because as the singularity approaches, if we can think about it, there will be a transitional period of time where there are literally two humanities. One is pretty much approaching godlike capabilities, and the other ones is just normal, non-enhanced people. So Ray Kurzweil sees this scenario as a little bit too off. He's pointing out that all these technologies like robotics and gene manipulation, they will also lead to a vast expansion in wealth creation. But again, if you think about that radical wealth creation would probably initially remain in the hands of the people who are already very wealthy, well, then again, where would it lead us? Because these wealthy people are already very well positioned for the application of the green technologies. And just to make this point a little bit clearer, I recently looked at the cost of cryonics. Cryonics, making your body last for a very long time. It's freezing your body in essence. It can be actually very expensive. 3 years ago, it cost in the US and in US dollars anything from 28,000 to around 200,000. So will there be a condition for two civilizations to emerge? One of them will be kind of breakaway civilization. And another issue that transhumanism agenda poses is very well articulated by Francis Fukuyama, who is also looking into transhumanism or human enhancement. Human enhancement, according to him, would undermine the whole equal moral status of humans, because the equality of humans rests on the fact that human beings, all of us, share the same human nature. And hence, if we were to make this fundamental alteration to human nature, as transhumanists would advocate, then there will be no longer any basis for moral egalitarianism. So he approaches this from a moral perspective. And that's his direct quote that I would like to read out to you. He's talking about political equality. So the political equality enshrined in the Declaration of Independence rests on the empirical fact of natural human equality. Underlying this idea of the equality of rights is the belief that we all possess a human essence that dwarfs manifest differences in skin color, beauty, and even intelligence. This essence and the view that individuals therefore have inherent value is at the heart of political liberalism. But modifying that essence is the core of the transhumanist project. If we start transforming ourselves into something superior, what rights will these enhanced creatures claim? And what rights will they possess when compared to those left behind? So his train of thoughts is there is human essence, human nature. This human essence is responsible for our equal moral status. Then this human nature, human essence would be changed. Then if we were to enhance ourselves in various ways, it will be changed, right? And therefore, if we enhance ourselves in various ways, we will no longer be of equal moral status. And this is something that I would really want you to think about. And before I go, I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. I've recently been listening to a psychology professor, Ariane Bilheron. I hope I pronounce her name correctly. She's French. She's clinical psychologist and author, and also she teaches psychology. She was explaining paranoid behaviors that we see so often these days. And one of the key characteristics of paranoid behaviors is delusion. And she briefly spoke about transhumanism as well. In transhumanism, she said, there is a delusion of immortality. People who are normal, people who don't suffer from paranoid behaviors, they really have accepted their own finitude, if you will, their immortality. I am going to die. That's what they're saying. I also had an interesting conversation with a very good friend of mine, Larissa, who is a great supporter of the Fringe show. And she's saying, and what kind of came to this conclusion that probably the roots of transhumanism is believing in own limits and also bettering ourselves in artificial ways, which is becoming kind of the norm because of that belief. And I don't believe in that at all, and she doesn't. I think really humans are limitless. And I came to wonder, is it that some kind of mediocre people subscribe to these transhumanist ideas, the ones who have some kind of an inferiority complex? So I'll leave you with this thought, really. And maybe just one final comment. Just yesterday, I was listening to Verdi's Requiem, which was conducted by Theodor Kurzweil. Requiem is really about a man in the face of death. And Theodor Kurzweil is one of the most probably interesting, intriguing, and renowned conductors of our time. And what he said is that the composer writes his music in another dimension and brings this to our dimension. There were a couple of comments after him conducting Verdi's Requiem, and one of the comments was, it is as if he, Kurzweil, penetrates the consciousness of musicians and becomes the master of their consciousness. He is not a conductor. His music himself, it's magic. And, well, I'm just thinking, can you improve of magic that we imperfect human beings produce? Humans are really already limitless. We are multidimensional. We can communicate with other dimensions and other consciousness, if you will. I'll leave you with this thought. Thank you so much for joining the Fringe, and I shall see you, I should say, next Friday, 2 p.m. Dubai time. Now it's time for some little music.